Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with a showdown between the Delhi Sultanate and the English. So it should be quite a bit of fun. I gotta try and get that fast castle age going so my men-at-arms can stop those fearsome longbows. But this is gonna be the mountain pass, if I'm not mistaken. No, this is actually Lipany. So this is kind of like, as people have said, dry Arabia, essentially just with hills and mountains and things like that. So as far as the initial build, we're going to be going for an early mosque, and again, going to be getting that very, very fast sacred site tech, the Sanctity. So as soon as that finishes, Sanctity is going to be queued up, and this allows your scholars to capture sacred sites before the castle age. Very, very strong for sure, and one of the staples, I think, of Delhi competitive play. I have seen Delhi players kind of do a bit of a delayed one. We actually had a very interesting game in today's tournament. So we had a tournament earlier today where the Delhi player actually did not go for sacred sites until the second age. But when the second age came, it was just like pedal to the metal, all sacred sites, let's go, which is kind of an interesting variation. I typically like to play the Dark Ages a little bit and try and get them in the early states of the game, but both viable strategies for sure. So we got the wheelbarrow coming here, as well as the old forestry coming in. So getting all the tech, and that's why I really like this opening. It gives you access to the tech really, really quick. And even though it takes a long time, 5 or 6 minutes, might as well get that started as soon as possible. Why not? It's free real estate, right? So going to be trying to cap that, and forestry coming in as well. And for my opponent up here, very standard English build, going to be going for gold and for food, and looking to get to the second age and get a bunch of longbowmen, then get to the castle age and spam springalds and longbows and have a good jolly time. So the benefit of this being a replay is we can kind of fast forward a little bit here. So we will scoot up a bit as we just kind of look at the basics here of the game. My opponent here transitioning to the lumber economy, which is very normal, because again, doing that as you go to the next age allows you to get a second TC faster, allows you to get longbows, and really put a lot of pressure on your opponent. Now, as far as what I am up to, I'm going to be pumping my scholar out here in just a minute. So as soon as Sanctity gets to about 30 seconds, 40 seconds, that's when I like to jump him out. We're also going to be setting up an outpost, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So our first villagers are up, and the outpost is going to be coming down, and this is going to give me good control over that early sacred site. So even if a longbowman or a vanguard men-at-arms, villagers, scouts, anything like that tries to shut this bad boy down, we're going to be okay. We're going to be in a cozy position. So hopefully you guys don't mind the fast forward in the beginning. Again, you guys have probably seen these openings many a time, but nonetheless, the English have discovered my ploy, and I do have my 2 villagers and a scout protecting the scholar here. We're going to be trying to close off the Great Wall of Delhi. However, my opponent does have a different idea. He does have his longbow coming in, and he has reached the second age ahead of me, because obviously going with this Dark Age pressure and this Dark Age control means that I will be getting the sacred sites most likely, but I'm going to be a little bit behind in tech. So it's a trade-off. On top of that, though, we're going to be getting the second sacred site up on the high ground. And most games I've had with Delhi, if I can get both sacred sites early, it's very, very tough for my opponents to come back. So going here, we are going to be trying to get that sacred site here. In the meantime, walls coming down as well. So trying to just wall off my opponent on every front and get control of all the sacreds and try and go for, honestly, a sacred victory. I feel like it's a pretty viable strategy because you'll be ahead in gold. You can get to the next age quicker. Unfortunately, that worker, I wasn't paying attention, and he will be sacrificed for the good of his people as he was trying to close off the wall. So the English have a couple longbowmen, a hardened spearman. Looks like maybe they're going to be pouring in a little bit. I shall be reaching the second age here in a hot second as the Dome of Faith is emerging. So this is a landmark for the Delhi that allows them to produce scholars at half cost. So what you do is you produce those scholars, you throw them in the mosque. That increases the rate of research for your fast research. Live long and prosper, in the words of the, well, I guess Spock said that, right? I think he was the OG for that quote. But nonetheless, the English are going to be able to shut down the sacred site probably. I don't have this garrisoned enough to really push him off super quick. There's only 1 arrow firing, but even as long as the outpost holds, I'm going to be able to come back later and maybe resecure this. Up on the high ground, we also get the sacred site here, so we do have a bit of a backup, but I really do like this aggression from my opponent. And you can see the gold I'm getting is insane, right? My banked resources are 600 gold and 300 food, getting dangerously close to being able to go to the castle age already, which is really, really powerful. Now down here, we are getting a market, and with the prevalence of having an excess amount of gold, I really like to get an early market out just so I can trade as needed. Maybe if I have a little bit of excess, I can then use it on food to get to the castle age quicker. But seeing that there might be some English longbow all-in pressure here, I decided to get double barracks here. Double stables. So that's going to allow me to get horsemen. So the horsemen will be coming out, and hopefully just kind of controlling the battlefield and shutting down some of this English pressure here in the middle of the map. Now, is my opponent looking to go to the castle age yet? He does have a double TC, so even though he's maybe behind in terms of gold, some other variables, the double TC will allow him to get a pretty sweet economy here, and we'll see what's cracking. Currently, he's got a 27 economy, and myself, I have 27 as well. So the double TC hasn't really kicked in yet, and for the most part, we will see when it does. Now my horsemen, I believe I have a couple, so we got 3 horsemen coming out, and I do not have the efficient production finished yet, so I can't quite garrison scholars in here. As far as the mosque goes, there's only 1 scholar because the other one was out on the battlefield. I believe he's hiding in an outpost, but we are getting the arrow slits upgrade here, which does allow the outpost to kind of fire on their own. So I did sell a little bit of gold, got the arrow upgrade just so I could shoot these spearmen and different units off and then come back and reclaim the sacred site, because the English have done a pretty good job kind of bunker busting a couple of these positions early on, which you have to do. If you just let them sit on those, you're going to get just absolutely destroyed. And he was able to kind of do it, I think, before I can go Castle Age. Yeah, so no Castle Age tech yet. These scholars are moving out. He's going to be moving across to grab this one. You can see another outpost going up, and the arrow slits upgrade here, able to kind of fend off the English forces. And now my horsemen are roving in the trees, looking for some goodies. Going to be trying to jump on these archers, but he's got spearmen mixed in, so I saw that wasn't a great fight. So I turn around, I snipe his horseman here, or his scout, excuse me, and that will deny him vision into the stealth forest, and then I run back into the trees. But it does cost me quite a bit of HP, so not really a free trade there. As this heroic scholar marches across the map looking to get over there and grab that sacred site, my English opponent seeks refuge here in the trees and prepares his ambush of all ambushes. So blacksmith coming up for English, very normal. Going to be getting the ranged attack upgrade, which makes the longbowmen exponentially more effective, very, very strong. But here comes the sacred site, going to be grabbing that. The English kind of sitting in the middle, just making sure I don't get those sacreds back. So wherever he goes, I'm just kind of following with horsemen. And now we have some horsemen creeping into the base here, and we are going to be getting a nasty, nasty counterpunch. So many of these villagers will be going down. The old bait has been taken. The English do compromise his sacred site, but during all that, I get in and I get a lot of eco damage. So we take down a ton of these villagers. We shut down a large portion of his food, which I believe he doesn't have a farm economy yet, so that's going to be a pretty brutal one for sure. Right there, you can see that the English farm economy will be tanking here in a moment. You won't see it reflected quite yet, but since we took out those villagers and shut that down, we're feeling pretty good. So England moving back across with 7 longbowmen. I do have 9 horsemen here, so I just have to kind of discover these guys, and I should be able to kind of swarm on them. One of my horses moving, but the English do flee back towards their base, and a little bit of a miss micro. I wanted to go protect my scholar up here. Instead, I should have collapsed on those longbowmen. I thought there were spears mixed in, so that's why I was a little bit apprehensive. But now there are spears back. That would have been a great timing for sure, and we probably could have pushed the English back into their base. But again, can't get everything perfect. So up here on the sacred site, we do get that back. We have the arrow defense tower up here, so if he does try and push that, we're going to be having that extra focus fire to kind of push back his forces. Now he's got a lone spearman guarding the sacred site. The middle, I keep trying to wall it off here, but we can't quite get it. Leaving that up, we are going to be going to Castle Age very soon, setting up the barracks. Barracks are the transition to men-at-arms at age 3, which is very, very good for the Delhi. And here comes the old horsemen. So they're going to be moving in, getting a nice push here on the longbowmen. Many of the longbowmen falling instantly. We do also have the outpost here, which is getting that nice range damage, helping to pick off the spearmen units. The longbows are falling in numbers, and I think the horsemen here are in a relatively cozy position, trying to move around the spears and re-engage on top of the longbowmen. And here, once again, we get another attack, but it's not without casualties, right? We're taking some L's, but, you know, getting his longbowmen numbers down is really going to help me control the middle of the map for a large portion of the game. I am a little bit ahead of my opponent in terms of score. That fight was favorable for myself, but his double TCs are kicking in, but my sacred site is as well. But I only have 1 sacred, so it's not terribly punishing, right? So he's got a couple spears here. We're going to be charging in and trying to finish them off, and we should be successful in our efforts. So far, so good. Are we going to the Castle Age quite yet? Does not look like it. My opponent's eco, let's look, he's got 42 villagers against my current count, which is 37. So starting to fall behind in terms of villagers. So it is going to be noticeable. I really am quite curious about what the equivalent is actually for the sacred sites, like how many gold workers that is essentially. Oh my god, look at this! The outpost up on the high ground shooting down into the villagers in the valley. That's pretty brutal for sure. Going to be forcing them off a couple food nodes, and that was completely unintentional, guys. I had no plan of doing that. So knowing that I want the sacreds, I really want that sweet, sweet money, we're going to be moving in and just basically trying to get the goods. Moving into outposts, setting up the spring-Alden placements, and trying to take control over the map. In the meantime, a couple horsemen going to be running over here to push off the spearmen, and the time is now. We are going to be trying to secure the middle. So a little bit of fast forwarding here as we are not going to Castle Age quite yet. Now we are. House of Learning is coming up, so this is a landmark for Delhi, which gives you access to unique technologies. More importantly, it gives you access to the men-at-arms and knight upgrades, which allows them to fight pretty efficiently against their equivalents on other civs. So the wall-off is complete, and now we have arrow slits coming in, so even if England wants to fight here, it's going to be a tough fight for them. They're not going to have the best of times. We do get the sacred site, sitting on 2 sacreds right now. On top of that, Castle Age is going to be coming in as the English now rush in, but we have the nasty, nasty garrisons here. So they are moving in, torches are out, and they're going to be going after ye old outposts here, but for the most part, not going to be great for them. They might get the sacred site, but it's going to cost them quite a bit in terms of the bodies that are engaging here. And we are going to be finishing another arrow slit upgrade. So quite nice for sure. And now we also get the Castle Age. So what we do at this point is we grab some of our scholars and we go around and we prepare to grab the relics. I can't remember which one we go after first, but relic control is super important for not only the immediate, present, but it's also really, really important for the late game because you can get the tithe barns, which allow you to get constant resource of food, wood, as well as stone, which is so damn powerful. Over here, just trying to wall off a little bit more. We got a villager moving down, just trying to keep my opponent on his side of the map. He does have that advantage of the 2 CCs, so it's really going to come down to like a defensive hold where I have to hold back this pressure. So there will be a little bit of a lull in action at this point, as both of us are like, okay, he's going to be booming. I'm going to be trying to hold the sacred sites and get the relics on the map, and we will see who is going to be the victor here. So we do have some men-at-arms coming out. Men-at-arms, of course, quite good against what he has, and perhaps now would be a good time to push in, but I feel like his longbowmen would be able to kite me and drag me into the base. So I figured let's take the defensive posture, let's secure the sacred sites, and hopefully just, secure the game from there, really. So my opponent going to be going to the next age very soon, so he's really not that far behind me. He's been doing a great job, though we are slightly ahead in score. The White Tower is going to be coming up, which will give the network of castles for this entire radius. Beautiful placement from my opponent. Very, very impressed with that. Because again, if he's fighting right here, trying to secure the sacred sites, which are going to be a deciding factor in the game, he's going to be getting that 25% attack speed upgrade, and he can improve it to 50%, which is freaking insane. Now, relics, do we have any relics yet? We have our first Dumbo coming out. Our scholars have been gathering relics. We have 2 in the base. As far as our mosques go, we only have 2 scholars researching at this point, which is a little bit precarious because they have been out on the map gathering relics and getting sacred sites. Our eco is at 51. I would imagine he's probably closer to 70 right now, 68. So not a massive difference. I would say we're pretty even in terms of economy based on the sacred side I've had. But it's going to be tough. And more outposts coming up, just trying to make it as obnoxious as possible for him. I really just want him to push up the middle and have to kind of use brute force to get through here. So the first Tower War Elephant is out. They have very good ranged armor, so pretty good against longbowmen. I actually prefer them against England compared to the melee elephants. Whereas the melee elephants are a little bit better against French in my experience, although even still, having the Tower War Elephants with the bow attacks is so useful. Some more wall-offs coming in. A couple English longwomen creeping around the flank as we do capture this other sacred site, and we are going to be getting all 3 in a second as another scholar. We'll be surging forth and getting ready to party. So we had a ton of excess wood, setting up a farm economy, preparing for the late game here. We got 3 scholars in here and 2 in here, so we now have 5. We do also have the double blacksmith pumping out upgrades. So if you're playing Delhi, 2 to 3 blacksmiths consistently pumping out resources is quite good for sure. Our horsemen here able to kind of spot this English aggression, and hopefully they will be able to shut them down. So I kind of have a weird playstyle where I don't like to use spring alts, and my main philosophy for this is with China I will, because it's kind of mandatory, but there's other civs where you could get them with Delhi, right? Like I'm in the Castle Age, I have pretty good gold income, I could be spamming out spring alts, but I'd like to try and not use them because I feel like they're going to get nerfed. And I don't want my playstyle to revolve around spring alts because they're incredibly fast. I think they're a little bit too good of an all-purpose unit, so I do think that relic, probably the bounce patch, is coming this week. I think they're probably going to nerf them, so I'm trying to develop playstyles where I do use them if it's like really necessary, but for the most part with Delhi, I usually don't, and I've had pretty good success with not using them with Delhi. Granted, there are other civs where if you don't use them, you're just putting yourself so behind, and you do need to do it, but in this case, I think we're okay. So sacred site's going to be captured here, more outposts coming up, and we do have arrow slits, and spring alden placements are coming in. My opponent looking to get the battering ram push coming, which is certainly going to be good, and his men-at-arms will not be quite as offensively capable as mine, but they're very, very tanky. England does have the armor-clad upgrade, and they have gotten that, so his men-at-arms are going to be a little bit tankier than mine. Actually, I think the 3 armor that they get does outweigh the bonus damage I get from the House of Learning, and it ends up being a bit of a wash. So very, very cool for sure that the English men-at-arms can kind of cancel that out. So a good army for sure. Very strong. My force is quite formidable. It's a little bit more one-dimensional. He does have the ranged assets, including a couple longbowmen, but more importantly, he's got the attack speed buff. So he's going to have essentially, I think, 25% more DPS. Yeah, units nearby get the 25% attack speeds. That's crazy good, right? And I was kind of wondering during some of these trades how his units were trading with mine, considering I had the upgrade advantage and just more quality, but it is really coming down to that attack speed buff of England. So sacred sites are on the call, and right now I believe the sacred sites were at about 7 or 8 minutes, so it's getting a little bit dangerous for my opponent. So I push in, go after the Rams. Looks like he's going to be coming in pretty aggressively here, so we are going to be getting ready to fight the Royal Rumble. So the Delhi moving in, and the curved blades had just finished, so now I have a pretty big DPS lead, but his men-at-arms are very, very tanky with 7 armor against my 5 in melee, so he does have that armor advantage. And the Dumbo here getting some good melee attacks and also shooting down where it can. The battering rams getting onto the towers, doing some decent work as well, but for the most part, my men-at-arms, very numerous, are able to create concaves around his men-at-arms, and from here we're getting a pretty good push. Unfortunately now, though, the dreaded spring alts are going to be coming out. So I do move a couple units back here, trying to torch down his spring alts, knowing how dangerous they can be. If I let him get a critical mass of spring alts, he's probably going to be in a pretty controlling position here. So very good micro on my opponent's part, able to repair that bad boy. we are ahead pretty well, and I would say that fight was a decisive victory for the Sultanate, as we do push back those units. Now at this point, a couple of good transitions would be to start massing out scouts to counter the Springalds or horsemen. But in this case, I do decide to continue on the men-at-arms, feeling that they're doing pretty well against his battering rams and aggression, and more outposts are going to be getting set up here. Unfortunately, I do not have the resources for a keep. And income per minute, he's actually passed me in gold. I mean, I have 3 sacred sites, which are giving me 600 in total, but the English are going ham on the gold. And now we're really seeing the benefit of the double TCs kick in, right? And I also have, like, what, 3 relics? I have another relic I just brought back to the base, so I'm getting so much gold for free. I'm not even mining it right now, but my opponent with the double TCs is killing me on food, so he's starting to kind of come back a little bit. However, in terms of sacred sites, he doesn't have much time left, so he really needs to get in here quickly. Otherwise, he's going to just straight up lose the game to sacred sites. The other ones aren't terribly viable. Here I have 3 Springald emplacements. Up here, this one's a little bit vulnerable, but it is up on a hill, which he would have to overextend on. So now we make a very aggressive play. I'm like, let's push into his base, put him on the back foot, try and torch some of these Springalds. So the men-at-arms going to be getting in there pretty aggressively, while Dumbo continues to go fisticuffs here. But Dumbo is probably at the end of the road, as it is going to get dragged down. And also the White Tower is putting a lot of DPS in. But we did kill a couple Springalds, lowering his numbers, putting us in a relatively cozy position. More so buying me time for a big Chungus keep. A couple crossbowmen moving in as well. But the men-at-arms chasing down the Springalds, which are apparently mega fast. I feel like if Springalds were about the same speed as like Mangonels, it would be reasonable, but they're just so fast. They're like as fast as your infantry, and with the Mongols, they can be faster than, like, as fast as cavalry almost, which is pretty crazy. But, you know, the whole distraction does buy us time. We get to keep up, which is great, because obviously the epicenter of combat is going to be on the sacred site here in the middle. We have a couple men-at-arms moving up and around the top, looking to disrupt his farm, so just kind of occupying him, right? He's got 9 men-at-arms chasing my batch of, like, I think 10 or 11 right here. And we're just trying to, you know, keep him busy. And it keeps him off the sacred sites, right? It allows me time to get these emplacements up. And yeah, the keep is going to be researching burning oil as well as a Springald emplacement. And we will be setting up a mosque next to the keep to get that juicy hospital trade. So basically, with the House of Learning, I don't know if it's finished quite yet, but the hospital one looks like, yeah, it did finish. So now basically my Delhi forces will be getting healed if they're near mosques, which is very good. It's like a mobile field hospital. Yeah, just running around with these guys, trying to occupy my opponent's attention. He's actually finally pulled ahead of me in score. So this is like a really cool example of like the Boomer versus the Sacred Rush, right? Because as far as time goes, guys, there's like 3 minutes left. I wish I could show you, but I will tell you when we get there. You'll see, but we're very close to the Sacred victory right now. So we're getting Springald emplacements. I know that he has a little bit of an eco advantage. I'm starting to fall behind a little bit, and I can feel it. I can feel the villagers. I know he has a double TC. We do have the relic advantage, though, 100%. I mean, we got 3 relics here. I would imagine Homeboy isn't really rocking too many relics. Yeah, it looks like he has, like, none at all. Really just hyper-focused on that farm economy. And now my men-at-arms are going to be using the sprint ability, so they'll be using Forced March to get away from the English ones. Look at this. Oh, my God, they're so fast. And they're just going to be hoofing it over to his farms and getting some nice harass here. But the men-at-arms are pouring in. Burning oil isn't quite finished. And the mosque, I don't think I set that up till a little bit later. I'm pretty sure it comes. But, you know, we got a decent little food economy and our gold is good. But my opponent really crushing me in most resource categories at this point. He's just spamming out so many men-at-arms. And, yeah, England really just getting the siege workshops up. And now Springalds are coming in. Springalds are going to be very good against my army comp. Just a lot of armor. Springalds can punch through armor pretty effectively. They do a base 60 damage. So they're pretty much good against everything except buildings. And that's why I'm building so many outposts and keeps, because Springalds can't really push through them terribly effectively. And, you know, each of these outposts with an emplacement is basically like a defensive Springald. That's tough to remove, right? And that's kind of the style I've been using. So mosque is coming up here because I want to increase the research rate of the burning oil. Try and get that going a little bit faster. My opponent's at 168 supply. I'm at 128, so pretty substantially behind right now. His food advantage really kicking in, and he's able to muster a much bigger force. Over here we have a couple men-at-arms. I did see them. I could see them from the peak of the hill, so I'm going to be setting up some stone walls here to keep those guys at bay here. And now my opponent does have the counterweight trebuchet shooting in. A little bit unfortunate, but nonetheless, we will see what we can do. So we're going to keep mustering out forces and try and get to the Imperial Age soon. But I noticed his micro was a little bit focused on dealing with my men-at-arms. So I just run in, get a bunch of torches, pull back, and I'm like, hey, it's free real estate, just like my technology. So that does spark my opponent to rage here as he now moves in. But we have the burning oil, and look at the big AoE damage going down. They got too close to the keep, and the burning oil really kicking in as more and more men-at-arms are sprinting around. You can see the Forced March coming in to get the reinforcements here faster, and they're going to be moving in and trying to shut down the keep. But we have a big royal rumble, a huge pit fight here in the center. Once again, the English are going to be forced back, and right now I think we had maybe, I guess my estimates were a little bit wrong, but it's very close to Sacred Site, very close to going down. But the Springalds are getting into dangerous numbers where the amount of DPS he can put out is going to be very foul, and he can probably push me off the Sacred Site and just keep making men-at-arms, which is exactly what he's doing. Not even bothering with longbows, just spending all of his wood on Springalds. Which again, this is this is taking place in the Age of Springalds patch. So he does reach the Imperial Age, which really put a lot of stress. He got the Berkshire Palace up, and now he's going to be securing this gold node on the far side. Still no relic play for my opponent, really not caring too much about that. And that is one thing, despite the fact that he has a better economy, that could keep me in the game, right? My income per minute right now is pretty damn good. You can see 2,100 gold, which is just ludicrous. So I'm defeating my opponent pretty heavily on gold, but his food is allowing him to just pump out masses and masses of units, where my food is okay. It's still pretty respectable. We do have the farming upgrades coming in. I believe we're all maxed out on that. The blacksmiths, we have all the upgrades available for this current age. And the fight in the middle continues to rubble on as we just fight over this keep right here. So once again, he's getting those nice bombards. The spring altar, even if they're just doing like 10 damage a pop, it does add up. And he only has one of the counterweight trebuchets, so we are able to partially repair through this. And I thought about surging in. I mean, I looked at his army. It's 19 men-at-arms. Myself, I do have 16, but I also have 2 Dumbos. But the Dumbos really get countered pretty heavily by Imperial Age tech, but also by Spring Alt. So you can see the focus fire from all those guys, really able to get some nice work. And now we're going to be taking a fight, just trying to keep my opponent honest. I don't want to let him sit there and get too comfortable. Granted, this fight may have been a slight mistake because of the Spring Alt presence. You can see how quickly my Tower War Elephants just get dunked on. And does he have Elite Men-at-Arms yet? He does not. Neither of us do. And now I'm going Imperial Age as well with the Hussar Academy, which gives me free food based on the amount of technologies I've researched. If I'm not mistaken, the Academy does give you, I think, like 700 to 900 food when you have like all your tech researched. So it's pretty good. It can help you catch up for sure, and we're now almost catching up on food. It has given us some time to repair our keep here, and we do have the village fortress, which lets it act like a town center, so you can actually produce villagers out of it, which is very, very cool. But more and more outposts coming up, more Spring Alden placements, trying to hold us. As of now, I believe there was like 1 or 2 minutes left on the sacred side. This was like do or die for my opponent. If he doesn't get in here, he's going to be in really, really bad shape. Nonetheless, his Berkshire Palace holding it down. I have a couple of horsemen moving in. Going to be trying to disrupt his gold here on the flank, but honestly, so much attention was focused here. I probably should have taken some men-at-arms here, but with the Berkshire Palace shooting in, you can see it just dunks on my horsemen. They just get absolutely destroyed, but we do get a couple of villagers, which is cute. And I don't think I had discovered this relic over here, so a little bit of inefficient scouting, but the keep finally does fall. Wasn't able to keep it up due to the Spring Ald as well as Trebuchet pressure, and now he's going to be going after my outposts, which are just being panic researched. I'm like, more outposts, more outposts! Get it going! We got handgunners coming out, so handgunners should be pretty good against men-at-arms, right? In theory, but his men-at-arms are just absolute, just meaty boys. Look at that, man. Oh my god, so tanky. They have 10 melee armor and 9 ranged armor, and my guys are like 6 and 6, because the +3 that English gets makes them so goddamn tanky. They're also elite, so this timing is really good for my opponent. My men-at-arms are not elite yet. It is being researched down here. I believe it's one of these bad boys. It's very, very close. And I do have handguns coming in, but the Spring Alds are just like constantly getting picks, man. Very, very annoying. I can't really do too much about that. Now he is moving in and is going to be taking some shots from my Spring Alden placements, which are doing good DPS, right? And we're going to be moving into fight because right now, man, I keep getting these estimates. Like, it keeps growing. I feel like that's going to be a meme, but basically, yeah. The sacred site here was very close to being captured. The game was almost over. So now we got the handguns. They are going to be shooting in, doing some great damage against these English units, and I do sacrifice 1 Dumbo for the good of the people. Granted, he doesn't make it that far, and he does get dragged down. So we're going to pretty much be stopping on the elephants here. Handguns continuing to fight. We do have crossbows as well, just trying to keep them off the sacred site, but it looks like my opponent probably going to be able to get this. And we will be moving in for one last attempt to try and shut this bad boy down. So they will be moving in, and here they go. Get on the sacred site. They rush in, but nonetheless, the English elite men-at-arms fighting like absolute champions. And we're really doing great on gold. We do have the tithe barns, so our income across the board should be kicking in soon, and we should be getting some free stone. But England is going to be getting the sacred site here. We jump in, one last-ditch effort. I remember vividly now, there was like a minute left on it, yeah, but he is going to get that. The Spring Ald DPS is just too much, right? Like these fights, even though like we can grind down the men-at-arms, every one of those Spring Ald shots is like just 1 or 2 shotting some of my very expensive ranged units. So England probably will be forced back here, but not before they get that sacred site. Very well played to my opponent. Now we have a more standard game here as the sacred victory is off the table. My opponent pretty massively ahead in score. He's currently getting 3,000 food. So this is where England just goes bananas. And they're also getting gold from this, right? So this is where England is going to get crunk. And I'm going to be put on the back foot 100%. So we'll do some fast forwarding here. I'm going to be rallying behind my outposts, using them as a little bit of a holding option, which is basically trying to keep the dreaded English at bay. Setting up my own farms, trying to catch up there, and also mustering scouts, because scouts are a very cheap food option to try and chase down some of the big Spring Alds. But England is in the floodgates. Now the men-at-arms going to be shutting down my other sacred site, so I'll only have the one up on the high ground there, which is very, very unfortunate. And yeah, England continues its reign of pressure, and that is a shit ton of armor. And yeah, I have handguns and other units that can fight against them, but the problem is good players, what they'll do is when they have this much armor and that much of a food lead on you, is they're just going to split their units all over your base, and you're not going to be able to match their numbers, right? Like if this army fights me head on with my handgunners, I might be able to fight them, but otherwise it's going to be very tough. So we do get the scouts around, the scouts die back, and we get some good pressure here on the Spring Alds. You can see the Spring Alds are getting torched. finished. And yeah, why invest in knights to do this when you could just use scouts? And the handguns here are last samuraiing many of those English men-at-arms, so could this be the dreaded comeback? The score is going down a little bit here for the English and a little bit up for myself as we are able to take out, I think, 4 or 5 springalds, really putting his numbers down. But the men-at-arms spam is getting quite real, those big, meaty English men-at-arms. So the hand cannoneers are forced back, and they will be turning into fight. I do have more of my men-at-arms coming in, who of course do have 23 damage against the English, who currently have 19, so it does counteract their armor, but nonetheless, very, very tough. And he does have a huge economy, 4,000 food right now, and now that I'm on the back foot, losing sacred sites, which I really was banking on for my economy, I was kind of hoping for the sacred victory. That was my whole game plan. I was staying on one base to really just pump everything I could into defending that. But now my opponent has gotten through, and the tide will indeed turn, as now he's got bombards and other units. We continue to muster scouts, but he is getting into my farms here, which were in a little bit of an awkward position. Honestly, should have been back here, but I just kind of built them like during a high micro situation, so I wasn't really paying attention to placement. Granted, I don't think it would have made that big of a difference overall, but we are paying a little bit for that now. So we get a lot of scouts, and they move in and instantly torch a bombard, and that's super cost effective, right? It's like maybe 500 food worth of scouts just torching so much artillery. And honestly, that's what's keeping me in the game here. Just the scouts torching these artillery pieces is super cost effective. Also, our handgunner is going to have to hunt down now, but now he doesn't really care, right? He's got 4,000 food a minute, which is also turning into gold because of the English farms. And he could just like throw units away and just like throw them into random portions of my base. And also on top of that, he does have a couple dudes back here. Just pressure coming in from all angles. And there's not a whole lot of counterplay I have. You can see my scouts here trying to fight back the English men-at-arms. And they do eventually push them back. Excuse me, the hand cannoneers. We are able to finish them off. But England is all over the place. They just have so many expendable troops. We're chasing them down wherever we can, but he's just throwing bodies and bodies of troops, and he has constant production, whereas my infrastructure is being interrupted, right? Back here, you can see my farms are being shut down a little bit. Granted, we do have outposts back there, and we are able to kind of fend them off. But even still, the keep is keeping some of these men-at-arms from getting into the cookie jar, but just tons of pressure coming in. The mosque, of course, healing up the villagers. But more and more English forces continue to pour into my base. Hopefully you guys don't mind the fast-forward fight, but I just really want to kind of get it. You guys can probably see the writing on the wall. He's ahead by 3,000. And there's not a whole lot else I can do this game. So very well played to my opponent. That's going to be GG here in just about a minute. He just keeps pouring in troops, and I'm not able to hold that back. And yeah, it was an incredible game. Very, very, I was impressed. You know, I thought he was in huge trouble when I had the sacreds, but he just kind of stayed calm. He boomed up, and then he came with a big lethal push in the later stages of the game. Using the spring alts to pretty good effectiveness, right? Like, I didn't have an answer for the spring alts. Now, maybe if I had gotten my own spring alts, like, I could have held that, like, perhaps, because the thing is, like, if I can snipe his artillery and have the advantage, it forces his melee army to dive into my towers unsupported. So I think that might be the proper call, is honestly just getting spring alts. I really don't like doing it, and I feel like they're going to get nerfed, but that may have been the answer. Or even so, maybe if I could have gotten some stone walls up, right? Like stone walls, and replace those wood walls. There was a big moment of like kind of calm, right? So we can go to the match history and actually find this one. I believe it was this game. Yes, so here's the timeline here, and you can see the statistics. Let's look at the economy. Yeah, so looking at the resources, I did outdo him on stone. The gold was pretty close, considering. I did have these sacreds for a long time, but he just crushed me on food. And that's England 101, right? I went one base, tried to win with sacreds. Oh, I got level 69. Hell yeah, that's what she said. But even still, I wasn't able to kind of hold that. And there was like, I think 50 seconds left exactly when he did get that. And, you know, it was a minute away from winning. And he was able to push me off and did a great job, man. Very impressed. Solid macro performance from my opponent. GG, well played. We'll see you guys next time, and hopefully you enjoyed that one. We'll be back with some really exciting replays soon.